GUE has, again, a perception of being mostly tech, cave rec, CCR, and perfection. And I want to showcase, like, no, like, you are really good at whatever level you are. You could be a Rec 1 or a recreational pass, a foundational level diver, but the standards are there, so it shows that you are really good just in those foundational capacities, and that's what GUE is all about.
Off-Gassing, a Scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. In part 1 of this episode, I speak with the 2022 GUE NextGen Scholar, Jenn Thomson. After learning to dive in Thailand, she instantly knew that scuba diving was going to be a lifelong passion. She shares with me the GUE Scholarship process, a brief overview of her year after winning the award, some goals for the future, connecting with the GUE community, her mission to highlight a different side of the agency, and much more. Stay tuned for part 2 as we go more into detail about her time as the NextGen Scholar. Please enjoy. Jenn, how are you doing this evening?
I am very good. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I am doing good. It's a little kind of late over here, 10 p.m., but not too bad. I'm usually kind of winding down this time anyways, but I was excited to have you on the podcast and hear more about your story. So welcome. And currently, where are you right now?
So currently I am in Dubai. I just flew over from Egypt, actually, which was super cool. I was there to get my technical upgrade in my fundamentals, and now I'm in Dubai, just for this month. So very exciting.
Awesome. And how did the technical upgrade go? I'm assuming it went well.
Yes. Honestly, it was amazing. I learned so much. So I was just in Dhahab, Egypt in February, and I spent a few weeks there with the goal of getting a tech upgrade in my GUE fundamentals. And my teammate, she had just finished her dry suit course a few months ago. So she still needed a bit of time to get used to the dry suit and have some practice. So we actually did a few workshops before the upgrade itself, which was super useful, like for me, in terms of getting my skills up to scratch as a student, but also to see how one would instruct a student. Because I guess we can talk about this in the future, but I really want to be a GUE instructor one day. So it was good to kind of be between the two, as it were, like looking at what my teammate could do in terms of an instructor and also being a student as well. So yeah.
So I recently I actually just got back this past Sunday, but I was thinking to go to try to upgrade to my tech, but I definitely have some stuff to work on before I can reach that, because I earned my rec pass in October of last year. Yeah, I just need more time to practice for the tech, just some fine tuning. Certain skills I have down pretty well, but certain skills I need some fine tuning. But it's always fun just to meet up with the instructor. And I'm pretty sure you know Gemma.
Oh, I love Gemma. Yes.
So yeah, I actually just spent about 10 days on Tiamen Island while she was there. She had a few courses, and then it was actually a lot of fun because when I went there in October, basically we were there for the class, and then we had me and my girlfriend had one day to do just a little bit of fun diving before we left. But she had a class. She had basically had back-to-back classes. But this time she had 2 days in between classes. So we actually got to get out and do some fun diving. And she knows her way around Tiamen very well. So it was nice to kind of pretty much her show us, oh, let's go to this spot, let's go to that spot. And it was absolutely amazing. But enough about me. My first question I usually like to ask is, tell me how and why. What led you to become a scuba diver? Tell me about that first breath underwater. Was it absolutely amazing? Was it incredibly terrifying? Was it, Tell me all about it.
I will do. Just a note to say, if you're in Tiamen in September, I might be there, so we should totally dive and hang out because it'll be great.
Oh, so you're going to be there in September?
Fingers crossed with Gemma. So we shall see. We shall see.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that would
Um,
be awesome. That would be awesome because I love that place. It's absolutely amazing. It's I will if she's there, we'll try to make it there, and if you're there, we'll definitely get some dives in.
Of course. I think that's, I guess, kind of a good segue because I first learned in like warm tropical water. I guess my story's a bit unusual in the fact that I was at university at the time. I was about 21, 22, and I was just finishing an internship year abroad, actually, like in the middle of the South African desert, just off the border of Namibia. And I was doing some research on basically ecophysiology of small mammals. So, like, the furthest you could get away from the water. And I was doing that because I wanted to try out all the different biomes that I could before I went back to the ocean, because I always knew I was going to be some sort of maybe scientist, like Sylvia Earle type style, or an astrophysicist, or something to do with science and exploration. And I just wanted to make sure that I had tried out all like the biomes, the deserts, the savannas, the jungles before I settled on the marine. And honestly, I could not wait that year to, I guess, finish my internship. And then I headed straight to Thailand to learn how to dive. And then I guess so I initially did a PADI qualification in Thailand, and then I finished it off in Mozambique actually. And I guess everyone asks this, like, what was it your first time like underwater? How excited did you feel? For me, it was nothing like that, which I guess reaffirmed that diving was something that I was going to do for the rest of my life. There was no rush of excitement. There was no like amazement. It was a very weird feeling. It was a feeling of, if you're just sitting in a warm bath, it's very nice, it's very calming. You might have some tea. It feels comfortable and like what you were meant to be doing at the time. That's the only way I can describe like my first diving experience. It wasn't like this most amazing sensation. It just, this feels nice. This is what I want to do. Yeah, so it felt super calming actually. And I guess everyone around me was like, they were so amazed and they were, super excited. And for me, it just felt so comfortable and like any other normal day because it felt like what I was meant to do. And when I came up, I just said, cool, that's me for the rest of my life. So, yeah. See, everyone asks me, how excited were you? And I was like, I wasn't, because I knew this is what I was going to do.
That is awesome. So did you grow up in and around the water, or so like what it just was just a natural feeling, like just a walk in the park or something?
So I guess yes and no. So I grew up in Newcastle, so northeast of the UK. Always loved going like to the local rock pools and things like that. I wasn't really a swimmer. This is a bit interesting. So a lot of people I knew were like good swimmers and then went to diving. I was not really a good swimmer. Like, I tell you what, learning to clear my mask was the hardest thing ever. And I was always, that one kid swimming with like holding their nose the entire time. What I liked was the feeling. So, when in primary school, when everyone was doing laps and swimming like a normal person would do, I would just float there and like just sit on the bottom of the swimming pool because I loved the feeling of being underwater. And I actually didn't know about free diving at the time. I just didn't know there was such a thing or a discipline. I just wanted to be able to stay underwater and hold my breath for longer. Yeah. And then that's how I got into diving, because I loved the feeling and the relaxation and being weightless.
Oh, okay. No, I love that. I love that because, to be honest, I think that's kind of the first time I've heard someone explain it that way, because usually there's like a huge rush of excitement. I know there's some people that they go like on the I don't want to say terrified route, but they're extremely nervous to get into it. It took them a little bit. They end up finding their passion and loving it. But that's such an awesome thing where you basically were just like, I felt right at home.
It was, apart from like taking off my mask at first, because that was a bit like scary. But apart from that, now I really love it. And it's interesting because actually, as of last night, I finally started reading Jill Heinerth's book, like I think it's Into the Cave or Into the Planet it was, yes. And she talked about the exact same thing, how during her swimming classes, she used to just be motionless and go underwater and see how long she could hold her breath for, which is super cool. I think, incidentally, my breath holding is quite good. I didn't realize this at the time, but so I finally did my first freediving class a year ago. I've only done 2 classes, and one was a year ago. And the first time I did static apnea, I did like 4 minutes, which I think
Oh,
is like a
wow.
bit unusual. But I really love the feeling. I don't know why. Obviously, guys, breathe when diving, breathe when scuba diving. But apparently, I don't really breathe. My SCR rate is really low. I did my first I did my longest dive ever in Dahab. I did 121 minutes. I wanted the one after the 120. And I was on a twin set, and I used like 100 bar. Like, that was it. So we were like at 25, 30 meters. Just so I am really relaxed when diving. It really feels like I'm just floating. For me, it's really nice. But to be fair, it did take a long time to get to that stage, especially when diving in a dry suit. And that was, I guess, one of the main goals I wrote down in my GUE scholarship application. I didn't write down like a certain depth or time or course. I literally wrote down, I want to be comfortable and competent in configurations. So it was a mindset shift that I wanted to achieve during the scholarship year. And I guess I could say I've done that. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on achieving your goal. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Well, actually, before I jump to the scholarship, when
Mm.
you took that first course, how did you find getting through the skills? How did you find the course in general? Was it something that was obviously, you said you had some trouble with clearing your mask, but in general, how did you take to the skills? Because I know I can't remember. I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but it's like, oh, you think of diving before you get into it, you're like, oh, it's going to be this amazing thing. And then you get to a class and you're like, what? I got to do skills. Like, how did you take to that the first time you were going through your first set of skills?
Ooh, interesting. I would say kind of pretty well, but it was the feeling after I did the skills, which was the difficult part for me, which is a bit interesting. Again, it was a whole mindset shift. The actual application of the skill, apart from clearing my mask, but I got used to that because it was a more mental thing of water going up my nose, but I trained that every dive. I took off my mask until I was comfortable. But after the skills, I found that there was a real disconnect between the level that people said I was and the level that I thought that I was myself. So when I was certified, people said that I was a quote good diver, and people actually remarked on how, I guess, flat and not moving I was compared to other divers. But for me, I felt completely out of my depth. As in, I have done these skills, but I still lack the experience and the competence to do them well. But I have passed. How does this work? So actually, it wasn't so much the skill which I felt was good. It was more like I had an issue with the fact that I completed the skill, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to do the skill over time, if that made sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I'm assuming just the kind of the person that you're sounding, you wanted to progress and push. Is that what made you seek further training?
No, for sure, it really was. And in particular, tell you what, so the first time I ever saw somebody diving in a backplate and wing was in Mozambique, actually. And I was like, again, this is what I thought and what people thought I was like. People said I was good. I thought I looked like a flapping wounded fish. And we were on the safety stop, and I was like flapping about, and I realized that I can't believe I'm saying this, but I looked at my instructor and thought, his jacket is on back to front. His is like going up the tank instead of around his body. That's unusual. And I also noticed that he was like completely motionless, and that's when like I really wanted to learn how to have a good foundation and how to be good at the fundamentals. And so then that eventually led me to seek out GUE because I knew that my body positioning, the proprioception I had in the water, how I activate certain muscles, it kind of needed to be unlearned. And so that's how I fell into extra training and eventually that certain organization.
Do you remember? Because I've had this conversation a couple of times. I don't remember exactly when I found out about GUE. I think it's just something that kind of, as you start diving more, you kind of start to hear about this, this organization and the things that they're doing. Do you remember like the exact moment that you found it and you're like, I want to try this? And then I guess my follow-up question to that would be the scholarship. Like, how did you find out about that? Tell me about the process of going into that.
I think I found it literally via social media, I think. And I think I found it via the previous scholar before me. So I think COVID had just happened. Yes, COVID had just happened. And it was like March 2020. And, everything had shut down. I had to leave my master's program. Everything was online. And I was on social media and I was looking at I was literally Googling, scholarship, Scuba things, anything I can find to help me on my path. And there was this one girl who was called something like a GUE scholar. And I clicked on her profile. Her name was Annika. We're now best friends. And I found out about this thing called the GUE Scholarship. And the applications were closed because of COVID. They didn't reopen again for another 2 years because of COVID. And so I kept checking their site to see if I could apply or when I could apply. And eventually, the applications opened. And so I literally applied. I would say I did my fundamentals before the scholarship because I found out about GUE through Annika and hence this agency. So I did my fundamentals course. And that's when it solidified, I really want to be part of this agency. And the training's so expensive, I could only do it via a scholarship. And so then I applied for the scholarship in 2022.
That must have been an excitement moment when you got the reply.
Oh my gosh. It was actually crazy. I did not think I was going to get the application at all. But I think there are several reasons why I did. So I read your bio, by the way, on the podcast website, and I agree. I love 30 feet warm waters with the corals. That is me. I'm not I don't really want to go really far. I always said I don't want to do Tech 1. Yeah, and I set out to kind of change the perception of this agency because I really wanted to apply to GUE and do more of the recreational courses, the science, diving courses, the education, learn about their instructor program. And I saw mostly individuals doing CCR and tech. And I thought, I wrote my application as such. I literally wrote in my application, I'm the best candidate because I'm not the best diver, but teach me, And I really wanted to show that even if you don't succeed or pass a course, it's all about that 1% improvement each time and showing the perseverance to get through the course as well, because GUE has, again, a perception of being mostly tech, cave rec, CCR, and perfection. And I want to showcase, you are really good at whatever level you are. You could be a Rec 1 or a recreational pass, a foundational level diver, but the standards are there, so it shows that you are really good just in those foundational capacities, and that's what GUE is all about. So yeah, I wrote all these things in my application because I really believed in it, and at the time I was working as a field research technician on a boat. It's a boat called Ocean X. It is an American-based media vessel, and I was doing everything from helping drive submersibles to scouting whales and helicopters and filming, doing coral DNA, all these types of scientific work, but not necessarily involving diving. And so I had a really good video showing me doing some cool stuff, and I had an application saying, here's what I want to do with scholarship, and I got it. And yes, seeing Jared for the first time on video was so scary and so exciting. My heart was racing, and he said that he wanted to interview me, and literally the Zoom call lasted about 10 minutes. He said, I have one question for you in the interview, and that is, would you like to be the scholar? Are you ready, basically? And I was yeah. So it was, honestly, I was kind of starstruck and have been in a constant state of imposter syndrome ever since. So yeah, it was super exciting.
So I've interviewed Jared on the podcast. Obviously, he's very well known. I'd seen him speak at a Scuba Expo maybe 4 months before. And it was really weird because it's funny that what you were saying, like this perception of GUE. I had this perception. I'm like, okay, here's Jared Jablonski, like the head of the whole shebang. And when I saw him speak, I'm like, he doesn't really come across like the person that I thought he would be, and I had this different idea of him. And so, but I, podcast, I'm like, okay, let me try to reach out to a bunch of people, sent out like 100 emails, sent him an email, never, ever did I think that he would respond. Right. I was like, okay, he's never going to respond. He responded and be like, yeah, I'd love to come on the podcast. And same thing. I was actually starstruck a little bit. And because I'm just like, I even told him, I'm like, dude, it's kind of weird. I'm sitting here with Jared Jablonski. And then it was actually quite funny because I think I had reached out to Gemma beforehand to inquire about the fundamentals class. And I was telling her, I was like, hey, so do you have some story about Jared that I could maybe use to like break the ice? She didn't say anything, but it was funny though, because when I asked him, he's like, did she tell you anything? And I was like, well, there's a story there. There's got to be a story there.
No, that's why I love it. Honestly, everyone's like one big family. So, and me and Jared, like honestly, it's crazy. The bond that we have now, it's amazing. So, and I'm not surprised. It's exactly the sort of thing that he would do just to reach out. He always makes time for everyone. So.
Yeah, no, it was super cool. It was a very humbling moment. And another thing that I wanted to say too, to follow up kind of on what you were saying is, him, like I said, I had this perception of him going in. After speaking to him, I'm like, okay, this is not the person I built up in my head. He's just a super humble, amazing guy. And what's crazy about it is he's done so much that like he has like the right to kind of be that person if he wanted to. Like, I've done everything, I've done this, but he's just super humbling, which I was like, okay, it made me want to kind of look into the GUE family more, right? So I can't remember when he came on the podcast, but it was a few months before I ended up making the time to go take the fundamentals course. And then after meeting Gemma, like literally, so it's funny because if you talk to her, I contacted her and I'm like, hey, I want to take a fundamentals course. My girlfriend just started diving. I think it would be a great class for us to take together. Obviously, fundamentals is a class that I've wanted to take for a long time. And I had all these questions for her because I'm like, okay, GUE divers do this. So, do I need this? Do I need that? And she's like, no, that, like totally just changing my perception just over text. And I'm like, man, this is crazy, to the point where actually that's why I wanted to do a series on GUE to kind of break that idea of this organization. But so tell me, sorry, I'm rambling now.
No, please, because I'm so passionate about that. And I think as well, like, it's one of the goals now with GUE to become more recreational orientated, which is so nice. And I guess as well, that's one of the things that I try to do within my scholarship year as well, change the perceptions. And me and Dorota, who's the vice president, she was my mentor during the scholarship year, which was so nice. We each get assigned a mentor, and so based on both of our then locations based in the Middle East, and based on what I want to do in terms of recreational instructing and foundational skills, she was the right match for me. And we did a few YouTubes together talking about my initial perception about the agency and how it's changed. So yeah, it's really cool to hear like people's first-hand experience of also having their perception change, which is so nice.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely crazy, just because and still to this day, like I'll see stuff online and I'm just like, you don't know what you're talking about, because it's not that, people be like GUE divers or this or that. And granted, I mean, every organization has the, not so pleasant people to the most pleasant people in the world. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, but no, it's been really great. And especially Gemma, she's just an awesome person to like dive with, get to know. Just a random question. So how long was the time frame from when you submitted the application to when you received the reply?
So like I did my fundamentals before I applied, and that was I think like a year and a half before I applied, because I didn't dive in that period, because I said before I was on like expedition vessels and doing other sciencey work which wasn't scuba diving related. I applied. The application window opens every April the 1st, and I think it closes July the 1st. So I submitted around about June time, and then I heard mid-September. And it was like an email asking for an interview. And then the next day I got the interview slash stroke news. So yeah, mid-September. And then from there, I was publicly announced. They did a community day in 2022. And so I was, I guess, shown on there on a live stream. And then I went to the 2022 conference in High Springs, and then talked about a bit about me. And then I went on my scholarship year. So yeah, it was pretty wild.
So after you submitted the application, were you like 50-50, this won't ever happen? Like, what were your, like, how was it going into that? Just being like, this probably won't ever happen. It's like literally like almost a lottery ticket.
Oh, solidly, like 99% wasn't going to happen. I was actively looking at other opportunities. I was like about to do something else with my life, other opportunities, other scuba diving things, other courses, like in September, because I thought absolutely no chance. But I guess in some sort of weird manifestation way, I was already planning a trip to see some of my friends from that Ocean X vessel whose headquarters are in New York. And I was planning a little America trip. And the dates of the GUE conference were over like that Halloween weekend. And I had other courses. I mentioned I did some freediving before. So I had everything planned and booked in November and October. Everything apart from that weekend, because just in case, just in case something happened. And hey, there we go. The universe spoke. So yeah, I had to fill in those weekend plans with the conference. So it was like 99.9% I was not going to get it. But that 0.1% of me just in case left something free in my diary.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Of course.
So after the scholarship, you're saying, you kind of had the public announcement, you went to the conference. What was like, how does that work out? You're like, okay, now I want to go and take this course. I'm going to go and take this course. Did you have like a set plan, or was it kind of like as it was coming to you, you were formulating a plan?
I would say like a mixture of things. So there's only been 3 scholars now. There's a scholar who is after me, there was me, and then there was this girl, Annika. Now, Annika had hers over COVID. So she, I guess, kind of had like a 2-3 year time period in which she did something for GUE in. So I was the first person that had just a year, I guess. And I was a bit different in the fact that I quit my job and I spent my life savings because I was going all in on this scholarship. You do get a travel allowance, and so that was $2,000 in the year. You also get a small allowance for housing gear. But if you know, housing is quite expensive, and I was starting with nothing. So I knew that if I got the scholarship, I would use it to make the most and try and use it to like change my life. I was hoping to, I guess, put all of my personal investments into the scholarship because I knew it would help me, I guess, 5-10 years in the future. So I had begun to think about ideas and places and courses to go. Because I quit my job, I didn't have, a working week. So I was fully using it to more or less intern in places for a long time rather than just do a course on a week and then go back to wherever I was going. So I had a few plans. Again, my mentor Dorota at the conference, she suggested a goal of doing an ITC, which is an instructor training course, with her in May, which was going to be in Sardinia, Italy. So I had to make myself, I guess, a bit ready for that stage up until then. And then as well at the conference, there were some very serendipitous happenings. I was actually invited to NASA in April due to what I said at that conference speech initially. So I had a few places I wanted to go. I knew the courses I wanted to take. So it was as we went along through the year, I booked a one-way ticket and just see where the year took me, basically.
I love that. That is so
Yeah.
awesome.
It was scary, right? It was very scary, but
Oh yeah, I couldn't even imagine, just because it's like, okay, one-way ticket, we're gonna see what happens. All my eggs are in one basket, but
yeah.
I feel like it's probably worked out pretty well for you at this point, I would think.
Yeah. So I think so. I can like give like a really quick overview of like what I did in the scholarship year, if that would help.
Yeah. Well, actually, real quick before
mm.
you go into that, tell me about the first time when you met your mentor.
Oh, so have you talked to Dorota?
I have not, but I want to
Okay.
say that she is coming to Indonesia to teach a class with Gemma. I think I might be wrong, in November.
I think that's Olga. That's Olga.
Okay, I'm not 100%
But
sure.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so no, I've not met her or talked to her.
So
I should invite her onto the podcast.
oh, you should. She's honestly amazing. And she has quite literally changed my life. And so I am literally so grateful to her for like everything she has done for me. So I knew of her because she was the vice president of GUE, and I guess I had heard a lot of things about her from other GUE instructors and individuals in the agency, because she is in a very high position, and she was one of the first women tech divers, and she was very highly respected and like revered in this organization. And I guess she's honestly one of the best divers I've ever seen. Like, she is just hovering motionless, and when she moves, I don't know how she's like she moves with her mind. She doesn't move anything else. It's actually crazy to watch. Like, how would you do that? And so people are really wanting to dive with her, because of how good she is. But again, with like all these people, with Jared, with Dorota, with everyone, for me, I wasn't nervous or starstruck to meet them. For me, it was just like meeting, I guess, now they're like meeting old friends. So I wasn't nervous at all to meet her. I was just excited to get involved. And within like 5 minutes of meeting her, she's like me. She had like this whole plan already kind of thought out for me, which was instantly the exact same as my own. So within 5 minutes of meeting each other at the GUE conference, we both realized that we thought about the exact same thing. So it was perfect. We hit it off really well. And she's always been there. We'd like text every day. We always have ideas and plans together. So it was really useful for her as a mentor. And yeah, she was the one that taught me twin set, actually. She did my doubles course, and then she did my ITC as well. So yeah.
And then, yeah, I would love to hear the overview of kind of the start to, I don't want to say finish, because I feel like it's, I know the scholarship is over, but it seems like there's a lot of things continuing to happen.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, so I guess I spent that period in December kind of just planning. I also had a lot of work in terms of finishing up my master's degree, which I had to tie up a few loose ends of during COVID. So I guess my scholarship year was mostly all in 2023. So my first stop was to Scuba Seekers in Dahab, and that Sameh, who is the main instructor, the main GUE instructor there, he invited me over. I met him at the conference, and he invited me over just to dive mainly. I hadn't dove in a year and a half, I said earlier, and in order to progress through the GUE levels, you have to do 25 experience dives. And so that was a good way for me to get 25 dives in. I think I did like 35 at that point. And it wasn't in the UK, which was super cold. So I loved it. And they invited me back, which is why I went back a year later on to kind of like, it was almost like a full circle moment, I guess. So I went there to do my tech upgrade, and they saw me, in a single tank and a wetsuit, like learning how to, route my long hose again. So it was a real nice moment for them to see that. And then so in February, then I went to deep dive. I stayed here for a month in Dubai, and there I did my doubles course. I learned twin set. I then learned dry suit from Gemma, which was super lovely. She came over to do some recreational instructing because she knew that I was there. So that was really nice. And then I also did a photogrammetry course with John Kendall, which was really cool. Especially in deep dive, you have like all these, like, you have really good models and things that you can practice on. So that was super cool. And then in March, I actually stayed in the UAE. I went to the east side at a place called Fujairah, and I worked with a dive center called Freestyle Divers. They're not GUE, but they are RAID, and they actually have a lot of classes with GUE divers. So that was just really cool. Did some ecosystem monitoring work, because I guess that's my academic background, more marine science and things like that. So I was there, and that was for a few weeks. And then April was a lot. So in April, I then I did an 18-hour flight from Dubai to Houston, and I spent a week at NASA. So I went to Houston's Neutral Buoyancy Lab, and I was interning and shadowing one of the dive operatives there. And I got to see one of the first ISS training runs of a guy called Matthew Dominic, who is incidentally in the ISS right now. So it's so cool to see that. And that's because I have like the interest in space science and all these things. So from there, I then went to see the GUE communities in Seattle, and we did a few group and next-gen meetups and community diving days. And there were some guys there that commuted 8 hours just to meet me, which I was like, respect. I'm not that special, guys. But it was so nice, especially with the younger generations. They felt really inspired to hear like my story and what I was doing. And then I guess again in April, I then flew from Seattle to Croatia. So I did 2 back-to-back courses. I did my recreational level 2, so learning about all things navigation, rescue, and triox, so deep dives. And then I did the course I wanted to do most of all, and I put that down in my scholarship application. I did the scientific diving course, and that was super cool. So I was wearing a stage for the first time. I was learning how to make these like set squares, working with quadrats and transects, and so that was really useful too. And then in May, I went and did my ITC course with Dorota in Sardinia. I would say I probably wasn't qualified to do so because I didn't have a technical pass level, or I felt my skills weren't good enough. But it was super interesting in the instructing process, because I actually did a lot better than I thought I was going to do. So we can maybe touch on that later on. And then after that, funny story, I then broke a few ribs, so I couldn't dive for a few weeks. And so I then had to go out of diving for a few weeks. But I did a documentation diver course, so the final like foundational course in July. And then again, had to spend a few weeks out of diving. So in April, I went back to my expedition roots and did a cruise from Hawaii to Mexico, sampling the deep sea, so beyond 3,000 meters in the high seas, looking at little amphipods and things like that. And then finally, I went back to the UK and did a few bits of diving there around my hometown before me and Gemma, we met up in Florida. Again, so during this time, I was meant to have other plans, but things fell through because I wasn't able to dive. But then eventually, we had this massive reunion in Florida where me and Gemma went over to Panama City and did some recreational instructing workshops, and then drove down together to High Springs and Cave Country, where we did the last 2023 conference, which was incidentally the 25th anniversary. So I did a presentation about my year there, got to meet everyone again. And then me and Gemma incidentally flew together another 12 hours to the east and went to Bali for a few days diving, because again, I went to instantly my first like adult wedding, and one of the GUE HQ members, she had a wedding and I was invited, because such is like the bond now of the GUE community. And so I was diving around Asia, and then finally went back to Deep Dive Dubai just before Christmas, where I supervised my identical twin sister getting her first ever Discover Scuba dive. So again, it was a very, very much well-rounded journey, and it's ended up with me being here, still diving and still in the GUE community.
That is a packed year for sure.
It was, yes.
Just random question. How you said you broke your ribs? How did you do that?
So I had a massive chest cold, and then literally People ask me this. I literally just coughed and my ribs broke. So nothing more sinister. It was so casual that people think I'm making that up. And so yes, it was just a little illness that exacerbated things into a more serious injury. But no, all good. But the problem was I then went diving on said cracked rib. So this is a message to everyone: don't dive if you're feeling ill or have an injury, because yes, it was then made worse. So no, all is good now.
Okay. Okay. And then my question I wanted to ask is, and I'm sure this is probably not an easy question to answer, but what would you say has probably been one of the biggest highlights of the whole experience?
Oh, the community, like no doubt. I think just the people. Yeah, I would say meeting the people. Honestly, I feel very strongly about the concept of chosen family, and so GUE now has literally become like my second family. I mean, these people have literally changed my lives and changed the trajectory of my lives. I was saying before, now I've never bonded so strongly so fast with a group of individuals, of all ages all over the world. And so I now have connections, and with that, diving partners, place to stay, partners on projects. Yeah, kind of for the rest of my life. Yeah, I would say the people are the best.
That is awesome. And you were mentioning some of the courses that you took, and we don't have a date set because me and my girlfriend our plan is to take a Rec 2 course this year, and I'm actually really looking forward to that course. We're going to take it with Gemma. She has a course planned in Indonesia, but then there was another individual who wants to take the course, but he wants to take it in Malaysia, so we might end up doing it earlier. But I'm actually really looking forward to that course because I want to continue down the GUE path just to kind of see what happens. And you were saying you read my bio a little bit earlier. At the end of the day, I'm always happy to just be in a 30-foot reef, completely happy. But it's nice to kind of, I don't want to say push the limits because it's obviously not pushing the limits, but just explore options and see, what else that there is to offer. So.
Oh, honestly, I would say that is a very much underrated course. I loved it so much because it really honed in your skills on navigation, but in that, it's not just about compass use or natural navigation. You learn everything. Actually, most things that you would learn in like a cave course in terms of your line work, learning the different knots with spools and reels and things like that, which I never learned in any other navigation course. So that was super useful. And then the rescue scenarios, that was again super useful in terms of learning how to deal with unconscious divers in a twin set and a dry suit, which is also useful for my tech pass later on. So a bit amazing in terms of the skill sets that one has. And then, yeah, of course, going to 30 meters and doing the ascents was also really nice. So I would say, honestly, do it. It was a super fun course. Yeah, and a very much underrated one, I would say.
Okay. Which course did you find the most challenging?
So, I guess so my favorite course was scientific diver because that's the one I really want to do. And I remember like hearing the amount of skills and the steps of each skill we had to do was insane. And there was one point where we were making a 9-grid square for monitoring. And so we would have these 4 reels, and then as we were making the square, there would be a person that put a datum or a weight on some of the corners so it makes a square. And then, if the side was 12 meters, then 2 of us would go at equal intervals. So every 4 meters, tie off using the knots that we learned in Rec 2. We would tie off little spools to that side, then back kick simultaneously, and then tie off, and then do the same to the other side. And then one person would be doing photogrammetry, one person would be collecting samples. So when I heard about the steps that we had to do to recreate this sequence of events, I was like, I can't do that. But it's so interesting. So when I was doing it, I was like, wow, I'm actually doing this, and this is easy. It's okay because of all the other bits of training I'd done beforehand. So I would say that was interesting because I thought it was going to be hard, but it was easier than I thought. Now, I guess then in terms of skill sets, so I know I didn't do this on the scholarship yet, but in terms of the level of my skills, it would have to be the tech pass, because I worked so hard on that tech pass, and it was to achieve true motionless, which I really struggle with, and I really have to work on like my proprioception in the water. My weighting is a big factor. I am exceedingly top heavy because I am like 5 foot. I'm quite small, and most of my fat distribution is on my hips and my lower half of my body. And then I've got, more or less 80% of my body weight near my head. So that is a big challenge in terms of weighting and also body positioning and activation. So in order to achieve motionless while doing those skills was super hard. But during the course, I would say my ITC, so the instructor course, was the one which I went into it feeling like an incomplete imposter, because I wasn't an instructor from another agency. You don't have to be, but most of the candidates were coming from other agencies as instructors. Most of them were technical divers, cave divers, or have a technical level in their skills. I was not that. Most of them had more experience than me. And so I wanted to showcase the skills that I had and how much I've improved, but I recognized that what I lacked for that instructor development course was something which I can't teach, and that's experience. And so I went into it thinking I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And in the instructor course, you don't have a pass or a fail, you just get signatures based on, it's more like a holistic checklist of GUE based on your propensity to become an instructor. So for example, you do have skills and you do have, your personal diving level, but you also have your level of professionalism or the way that you interact with the GUE community. You have your personal fitness as well, and you have the way that you can teach individuals. And so actually I walked away from that instructor's course with a whole bunch of signatures, which I did not even expect to get because of the way that I taught. I taught succinctly. I taught what people needed to know in terms of recreational diving. I did not overteach, and that was the big aspect of what many of the more experienced divers struggled with. So it just goes to show that like everyone's experience is valid, because at the end of the day, I was able to relate to recreational level students because I literally had gone through the same mistakes that they had a lot sooner than the technical divers who had more experience, but then didn't know how to teach recreational level students. So that was the hardest one, but it also left me the most inspired and like self-belief, I guess.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I love that. Just because, like you're saying, you go into it with the mindset of feeling, the imposter syndrome, but then you leave feeling accomplished because of what you brought to the table. Oh, I love that. That's great.
Exactly. It's like the teamwork, isn't it? I did joke that they could dive and I could teach because I couldn't dive and they couldn't teach. But no, everyone can teach. Everyone was amazing divers. It's like I was very good at the presenting side of things and communicating succinctly. And maybe in water, I was good at the demonstration, whereas the actual skill I was demonstrating wasn't up to par. But the instructors or the invigilators during that course could showcase everyone's attributes. So, I knew that my skills weren't good enough, but I knew that the way I taught skills were good. Whereas individuals from other agencies, their skills were amazing, but they may have had to work a bit more in terms of teaching the skills in the GUE standard because they had to unlearn what they learned before, if that made sense.
Yeah. No, totally. So what is in store for the future for you? Do you have some plans for the rest of 2024? I think you were kind of mentioning some stuff in 2025, but I'm not sure.
Honestly, like all sorts. So right now, so at the end of my scholarship year, GUE decided to, I guess, employ me, which was amazing. So I work part-time, but
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm just sticking around. At the moment, I am what we call GUE's global project coordinator. So GUE does loads of amazing projects, but nobody knows about them, or people don't know how to get started on projects. And so I am here to help coordinate, do any forms of engagement or logistics in terms of projects for GUE. I also, I guess, now help run the scholarship program. So I am looking after all the scholars that are coming through and also helping out in terms of their scientific endeavors. So Project Baseline, helping create scientific advisory panels, and actually participating on projects as well. So it's all super exciting. And so hence I was in Dubai just to try and sort out like adulting finances and things like that. So that's super exciting. And then I am still continuing on my instructor path. And incidentally, I'm going to Sardinia in June, and Gemma is there. And so I'm going to intern on one of her Rec 1 courses, which is really nice. In addition, so I said I would never do tech, but I'm doing Cave 1, which is very exciting. Not because of any exploration, but purely there is a lot of scientific work in Sardinia happening, in particular due to marine genomics, which I have a past history of. And so I want to help collect some DNA samples and eDNA stuff. So I'm doing Cave 1 as well. Very exciting. So my job, I guess, is remote, nomadic, flexible. I have the freedom to go wherever I want, when I want, I guess, within reasons and monetary reasons. But yeah, I'm looking forward to developing GUE with projects wherever they may be in the world. And so I'm just getting started, but I have lots of big plans.
Cool. How are you feeling about going into the Cave 1 course?
Oh God, don't ask. No, I think it'll be really. No, honestly, I think it'll be really interesting, and I think it's really good. Doing the technical upgrade over a long time period in terms of the workshops we did before really helped cement me in terms of my skills in like not moving or not going up even by a few tens of centimeters. So that is really good. And also with like we said, Rec 2. So I've actually done, hopefully I still remember all my line work, and so hopefully it should be okay, and I am very much looking forward to it. And yeah, the person who's running it again is one of my, I guess, close mentors and friends, so I'm very much looking forward to it. But maybe ask me again in June. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so that's actually funny because I don't know if you've ever talked to Gemma about that, but she, like, I think like her story is like she had no interest in caves, took a Cave 1, and then I think she just went and completed her Cave 2 not too long ago because she went to some caves in Indonesia. And so it's funny how people just catch that bug, and because I've heard that quite a few times, people like, I don't want to be, and I was kind of very much the same way, where I was like, I don't ever see myself going in caves. And then that first time you kind of get into that area, you're like, this is pretty cool. I want to do more. Yeah. And then the skill set to do something like that is always, it's something to achieve for sure.
No, for sure. And I guess for me, I guess like a year ago that I wasn't in the right mindset in terms of mental confidence or competence to do anything like this. That's why I never did my tech pass or anything during my scholarship year. And, I had people asking me at the conference, actually, the 2022 conference, I think I had 90% of the questions was, so when you're doing your tech 1, and I was like, I'm not doing it. And so I knew what I wanted to focus on. I knew what I wanted to, I guess, change in the agency and the perception I wanted to leave on people. And I've honestly had messages from people all over the world who, even when I was diving in single tank and wetsuit, they were saying, is that GUE? I was like, of course it's GUE. You're allowed to dive in a single tank and wetsuit, and inspired people to go and start up their own communities. And it was never something that was on my radar. And I guess it still is more so for the scientific project aspect rather than how far can I go and see some rocks. But I agree with you. Now I'm excited.
So my last question for you before I let you go is someone that wants to pursue GUE training, someone that's gone through or is the recreational diver, and they kind of want to go and do the GUE thing, but not go down the tech route. What advice could you give to that person? Because I feel like a lot of people that do fall into the I don't want to say fall into, but go into the GUE route is because they want to do the technical side, but there is this whole recreational side. So what advice would you have for that person that's the recreational diver that wants to better their diving by doing some courses with GUE?
That was exactly the question that I had for GUE, and for me there was nobody to answer it, so I hope I'll be the person that now can answer it. Because when I first started, I literally saw GUE as, you know, as a place where there maybe wasn't a space for recreational divers, but I realized that it's just a marketing issue, and that's something that we are trying to change. And because these divers are out there, especially, you know, in places like Europe. Also, there's a big recreational communities in parts of America, in Asia as well. So it's literally just about getting out there and introducing yourself to the community, but also having the, I guess, the bravery and the gumption to do so and stick to your values as a diver. Because I guess you might have some individuals who will try and sway you down the tech route. But if that's not what you want to do, that's not what you want to do. And at the end of the day, I would say that going down GUE as a recreational or foundational diver is even more important than being a technical diver. Because at the end of the day, your foundations is what makes you a diver. And even if you want to do a technical or whatever route in the future, pursuing the recreational avenue first will be perfect, because you're literally planting the seeds for your future self in the same standards and the same configurations. And what better way to learn it than with GUE? So honestly, I would say that there's people out there are stories, there are communities. It's just about having the confidence to do so, because once you broach the GUE community and ask about recreational diving, we're all here. We're waiting for you guys.
I love it. It's absolutely welcoming, and it is true. Because I'll be honest, that like one of the big reasons why I wanted to do the series was because I was like, I would like to try to highlight that there is a recreational side. Some people have no interests in going to do technical diving, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And to see this organization that is so well known for tech, but there is this whole recreational side with amazing training, with thorough training, proper fundamental skills. It really is a cool thing to see. And I love it. Great answer. Well, definitely we will be back on the podcast together. I will have you back. I should put a roundtable together, because I've been actually wanting to reach out to some recreational GUE divers to kind of highlight that section more. So maybe we can work together and get something going.
I have some ideas.
Okay. Jenn, I really, really want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. I apologize for the technicality issues. I seem to have them more lately, and I need to figure something out. But I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast. It's been an amazing time to hear your story, hear your journey, and I really look forward to see what's in store for the future for you.
Honestly, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties too, but it's so nice to hear like your side of the story as well, in terms of like recreational diving and how GUE has really helped. And yeah, to see that, you know, I guess our mutual friends have had such an influence. So it's been so good. And yes, we shall do a roundtable, and we should do a part 2, and we shall hopefully dive together in the future.
Off-gassing, a scuba podcast.